Hey everyone, and welcome back to another episode of The Roundup. So, Diablo 2 Remaster rumors are afoot. Analysts are predicting that Microsoft could be undercutting Sony's next-gen pricing by up to $100, and there's interesting business reasons behind that. Bethesda have finally mentioned TES 6 again, and we've got the strange PS Store China situation, Nintendo getting their legal guns ready again, and a whole bunch more also in today's show. And then, if you want to watch something after this one, then hey, why not check out our deep dives into the state of EA games and Take-Two. Don't worry, we've got more in the way for that series, and if you'd like to get the daily briefing where our team basically boils down all the news into one nice easy place for you, you can check out our Patreon, and there's also physical loot there as well. So, with that said, let's get straight into the news. With the big next-gen announcement still pending, pricing is probably the biggest sticking point, the thing people are the most interested in right now. And there has been a lot of speculation on Microsoft and Sony's strategies, including on this channel, and over the weekend, a good bit more fuel was actually added to the fire, and some pretty hefty figures. So, appearing on Jeff Keighley's mini-podcast, Wedbush Securities analyst Michael Proctor indicated that Microsoft is going to be waiting for Sony to talk first on pricing, and then that they may undercut them by up to $100. And I mean, yes, that's a far cry from the more expensive Connect bundle plan that they launched last gen with. It kind of destroyed it for them. Now, if you want a hard price point, well, Proctor actually believes that the PS5 could end up costing $500, with scarce components basically driving those prices beyond what he believes consumers may have expected from the company. Of course, though, inflation is a thing. I do want to check in with that. So in the USA, the $399 launch price of the PS4, like in today's, well, 2019 dollars, is $437. It's about 9.7% inflation over that time span. So that's like the relative pricing for the US, and it's not the best measure ever, but it kind of tells you. And then for the UK, well, £400 back then would be at $460 now. Of course, that's all pre-corona. So all in all then, like a PS5 price of $500, it's not wildly more expensive than what the PS4 was relatively, but it would be a bit more expensive. Now, as for the Series X's ability to undercut the PS5, well, Proctor says that Microsoft's big balance sheet means that they're going to be able to afford to take a bigger hit on every console that they sell at a loss, with him saying that their plan might be to undercut by the $100 and to subsidize the first 10 million units of that console that they push. Now, I think what's key here, because it also supports this, is that also appearing on the podcast was the former EA and Microsoft executive Peter Moore, and he agreed with Proctor's assessment, emphasizing that pricing is going to be based off more than just the raw component prices, and that both Microsoft and Sony are going to be, they're going to be calculating just how big of a hit can they take getting those consoles to people. So, I mean, yeah, basically, who can burn through the most cash? Now, on that, Moore also believes that Microsoft will have the edge, saying that the stock price, the market cap, that's market capitalization, that everything is flying for them, concluding that CEO of Microsoft Satya Nadella must be looking at their current position and thinking, quote, let's get in, let's price it right. Now, at this stage, okay, we've only got speculation to go off, and like the idea that Microsoft is maybe waiting for Sony to blink first. Certainly that is speculation, but it does seem like a solid thing. I mean, Microsoft have been pretty much straining to beat Sony to the punch on everything else so far, but they have remained quiet on just how much their new machine is actually going to set us back. Of course, making money off selling consoles, that's not the point. It's never been for that type of console, right? Each party gets a 30% cut of all sales on their digital storefronts, as an example. So if Microsoft lost $150 in each sale, I mean, then yes, they need to sell like $500 worth of software on their store to break even. But that is, of course, a bit of a reductive way of looking at it, because each company also is running premium subscription services, Microsoft more than Sony. Now, a year of Xbox Live Gold is $60, and assuming it would have a high profitability, which I would assume, then that would accelerate their pathway to actually breaking even there. So actually, I'd say that perhaps having a more diversified services business in addition to their balance sheet and, just being a larger company, maybe that would let Microsoft go deeper in the discounts. I mean, hell, what if they eventually started having Microsoft 365 family plans, getting Game Pass or Xbox Live Gold? Then you're getting those big bundles. You've already got the Ultimate bundle for Game Pass. And basically what I'm trying to get at here is that, the deeper, the more sophisticated these business models are, and really just the business models of the modern era indeed are, then yeah, the more that those big incumbent companies with the big heavyweights basically, the more they can make that case to just be as aggressive as they can right now, because they're going to be able to think, well, 10 years of Xbox Live Gold, 5 years of Xbox Live Gold, and that alone will make up the money that we're going to be losing selling these consoles, and then we're going to sell a bunch of games, and a bunch of microtransactions, and a bunch of extra, bundles, and then maybe we can bundle our Xbox stuff with our, Microsoft 365 and our Microsoft Family app so that we have this one big solution, and then you can kind of see that it is just actually a little bit more than purely just selling games. Okay, the next up, and still funny enough on Sony, well, Sony have temporarily blocked access to the PlayStation Store in China. Now, their Weibo account said that this was to install a system security update, but that's all we know. And of course, it's like Blizzard's Weibo account. Was that, ran by Blizzard California? No, it wasn't. So, yeah, bit of suspicion on that one. Now, of course, it could just be true, but also it's China, so there could be more to this story, with there being some reports even suggesting that this could be ways to sort of take things down to investigate how Chinese users could access overseas PSN services, which of course would be a problem for the party. Now, the country's store library is way more limited, only 13 titles were added last year to the Chinese PS Store. So yeah, it's possible that Chinese users may have found some sort of exploit within the PlayStation Store to access content from outside their region, and that this security update could be more of shorthand for, investigate anything that threatens our policy, right? For censorship and all that stuff. Now, this idea was also supported by analyst Daniel Ahmad, who described an Xbox fanboy on Weibo claiming to have reported certain backdoor elements to authorities. So, who knows there? The post was taken down shortly after the store went offline. Now, we saw something similar recently with China's blocking of Animal Crossing New Horizons. Now, that was following a series of in-game protests from pro-HK demonstrators, and that's the sort of thing where it's mainly because there's the potential for self-expression within that game because of its customization features, and that potential for self-expression, well, especially with user-generated content, that is something that really the party would want to monitor. They would want to have some sort of censorship, flow and a way to actually get access to that stuff. So you would then think that maybe imported versions of that game, they wouldn't have any of that set up, and maybe that is why the party, or, those stores, whatever, ended up pulling that game from the region. And on that, it's quite funny because Nintendo, they've only officially released three Switch titles in China since they partnered with Tencent at the end of last year. That's not that many games. It's, it's even less than the 13 the PlayStation Store got last year. So a bit of a wild situation. Anyway, with that said, let's move on. Okay, moving on. After a series of very widely reported, yet ultimately fake leaks, Bethesda have broken their silence to reiterate that Elder Scrolls 6 is still years away. Now, we actually wrote a script based on these leaks, but then, it obviously turned out to be totally fake, so we killed that before it actually got to you guys. Now, responding to a fan query on Twitter, the man who, lied and then cried about people calling him out for lying, Pete Hines, SVP of Global Marketing for Bethesda, ruled out revealing details about the game anytime soon. And he stressed that fans need to temper their expectations in that whole area, and they need to remember that Starfield is very much ahead of Elder Scrolls in Bethesda's list of priorities and their launch lineup. Hines states that we don't even know anything about Starfield at this point, so that, he said that, he would be failing to, quote, properly manage fans' expectations, if people are expecting anything soon, and that any reveals are, basically years from now. Now, that's all fair enough stuff, right? But still, it does make you wonder, why Bethesda even bothered to announce Elder Scrolls 6 back in 2018 if they knew that fans, would just be clamoring for details, and that, it's that clamoring for details that ultimately leads to things like the Redfall leak actually happening. Now, what's interesting there is, I did ask the question, why would they announce the Elder Scrolls 6 in 2018? Well, we kind of know that, right? Because a lot of people at that time, well, a few months after that, they saw what happened when Blizzard announced Diablo Immortal, okay? And then a lot of people thought, hang on a second, how did Bethesda get away with doing with doing Elder Scrolls Blades. And it turns out it's because they announced Elder Scrolls Blades, but they also announced Elder Scrolls 6. So it still gave the hardcore like PC console fans something to be interested in. So I would say that's probably one of the reasons why they decided to announce it back then. And I mean, yeah, turns out if you announce a game and it's maybe 6, maybe 8 years off, that's going to be a little bit tricky. Anyway, speaking of Blizzard, let's move on. Alright, apparently a Diablo 2 remaster is being worked on by Activision studio Vicarious Visions for release in Q4 of this year. That would certainly be strange, right? Because it wouldn't be Blizzard's classic game team, who are the people who have, oversaw, these very successful StarCraft Remastered, which was brilliant, and the far less successful Warcraft 3 Reforged. So, yeah, who knows? Perhaps seeing how much of a disaster Reforged, must have been internally, given the massive delay on that, because remember, it was massively delayed and had a bunch of features cut. So maybe seeing that, like maybe a year ago, Top Brass decided, you know what? Let's not do this with Blizzard, and let's get Vicarious Visions, who, by the way, are no longer doing Destiny 2 support because, Warmind had been done and, Bungie had left. Well, with them being freed up, maybe they just thought Vicarious Visions should do a D2 remaster. I mean, it does kind of stand to reason, though I should say that, this is all from Act 2 Gaming. This is a French outlet that has previously predicted Blizzard announcements and does claim to have close sources. But of course, that's it. We just have to take their word, so we really have no idea if this is actually going to be the case. As for my take, I mean, if Vicarious Visions is doing it, that's a really good sign, actually. Blizzard clearly just don't have the capacity, and if we're going to put our analyst hats on, right, it would help to patch up Blizzard's sparse release cycle, so it would be, pretty good from a business case. Also, it's D2, it's a bloody great game, so seeing a remastered version of that that's running well and modern hardware, maybe, it's got remastered assets. Seriously, if you just did a StarCraft remastered to D2, that would be really, really, really good. So maybe that actually will happen. You can see the business case, I think, pretty clearly for Activision, and you can also see how it being Vicarious Visions would make sense in the wake of how Reforged actually went. And while not an actual remaster, we do have some sort of news here. Nintendo have gotten their lawyers out, once again, as they're sometimes like to do. This time, though, the target is the Super Mario 64 PC port. Now, this is a fully functional, native 4K version of that Nintendo 64 classic. This is basically the best way to play it, in my opinion, and it was developed with the assistance of last year's source code leak. Pretty incredible, but Nintendo's legal team, of course, are already hard at work scrubbing away download links and gameplay videos of it, but they might actually be too late because I think the community was really on the ball here. They knew what was going to happen, so it had a surprise release last week. That meant that people were able to download it before Nintendo actually got wind of what was happening and, started to stomp it out. And it's now the stage where that file, it's everywhere. So what can they do? I mean, despite legal efforts, download links are being actively shared on social media, on private forums, and footage of the game is still widely available, right? You can go and see it. Now, other sites, Reddit, for instance, are, committed to, sort of suppressing the project's survival. But I mean, hey, it's Reddit, right? Reddit kind of does what Reddit does. But honestly, with private trackers being a thing, I doubt this is ever going to be stamped out. And I mean, woe be it for me to celebrate piracy. But come on, of course, playing this in PC and having all the mod potential like the RTX thing that people did, that's a massive draw. This is probably going to be the best performing, most interesting version of Super Mario 64. So yes, piracy bad, but I mean, hey, it's a service problem. People own PCs. They want to play Nintendo games at very good settings. Oh dear, they can't do that in Nintendo hardware. There's obviously a demand that is not being met, and that is why we're at this situation. And with that, let's just blast through the rest of the news. So, Platinum Games, they managed to send out invalid Switch codes to a bunch of wonderful 101 backers. Yep, little bit of an oops. They seem to be on the case though, so that's getting solved. Then, the long-dormant Mafia Twitter account finally woke up, and it tweeted, "Family." We don't really have a lot to go on here. Right, it's just the word family when it comes to deciphering the meaning. Are we getting a new installment? Is it a remaster? Is it a collection rebuilt for the next gen? Kind of impossible to know. It's a scenario that's similar enough to the Crysis Twitter account, and then it got a remaster, right? Well, on that, a Mafia 2 remaster has actually been rated for the PS4, Xbox One, and Stadia, so it looks like we may have a little bit of an answer. That's what's going on there. Also, a new studio is being founded by ex-Respawn Entertainment developers. And what's interesting is it's a AAA studio, so there's clearly major financial, probably like what, VC backing there. But they say they're focusing on like, you know, having a smaller headcount, around 85 people, and they still want to be able to do like creatively risky things. And they basically talked about how your creative options and, you know, your agility just goes down once you're past 100 people, so they want to keep it small. Pretty interesting. Then next, Ubisoft have joined the digital event Wave with Ubisoft Connect on the 12th of July. They say they're going to be reveals. Let's hope there's some actual gameplay with those reveals. And with that said, that is it for today's episode of The Roundup. Now, if you want to watch something else for today, or, you know, whatever, if you're bored, you want to watch something else, there is two more videos. We're doing a sort of a state of video for all the gaming companies. We're probably going to do these maybe a few times a year, right? Like as the quarters roll on. We've already done our one on Take-Two Interactive and on EA Games, and that was quite interesting. You know, we're going through all the studios they own, what they're actually doing, their earnings calls, what their prospects are, a little bit financially, a little bit, you know, for us as gamers, should enjoy it quite a bit. So there's those videos to check out next. Thank you very much for watching today's video, and with that, I'll see you next time.